So over the next hour, we're going to be hearing from some of the leaders of this industry that have really been doing some amazing things. And we're really going to get down to the conversation of what we need to be doing better and what we can all do to support each other. So it's an amazing pleasure for me to introduce our first guest, Arlen Hamilton from Backstage Capital. I kind of feel like Arlen doesn't even need an introduction. I would inspire all of you to pick up a copy of It's About Damn Time. So in the work that we do, we started a book club for anyone who comes to us and they say, we would really like to learn more about venture. We would like to get into the industry. And what we do is we send them a book. When they finish that book and they've said, okay, we're through it, we send them the next one. I am really, really excited to say that this is the book that we start with. It's a way where we can let everybody know that this industry isn't perfect. I mean, it's not hard to know this industry isn't perfect. But we can let everyone know that there are people out there who are changing it, and there are ways where anyone can get involved. So let's hear it one time for Arlen Hamilton.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, our next guest is a dear, dear friend of mine. When I first moved into the industry, a big part of my focus was how can we change it? How can we make it different? And so when Loud Capital and our team put together the Pride Fund, we reached out to the community and we're looking for someone who could really lead the ship. We wanted to find someone from within the community, and we are very, very proud to say that we now have Densil Porteus as our CEO, our leader of the team. You'll be meeting our third guest here in just a moment, but I wanted to point out that this is the first time that we have actually met each other in person.
100%.
We have co-invested in companies, including Reverie, who many of you heard of. Let's hear it one more time for Reverie. We've worked with groups like Angels and Start Out and all of these amazing partners together. But it's events like South by. It's the opportunity for us to all converge again that is allowing us to have this conversation, not through a Zoom call, but in person with all of y'all today. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for being live. I want to start out with a somewhat simple question.
Yay. I'll take it.
What is Backstage Capital?
Yes, so we are a venture fund. We were started officially in 2015, started from scratch with absolutely no money, no connections, and we invest in underestimated founders, mainly people who are women, people of color, LGBTQ, and other. I am all three. And we have now, I call myself a triple threat, but not in the Beyonce way. We have now invested in nearly 200 companies led by underestimated founders, including Reverie, and many co-investors in the building, including Angels. And we just, I started it originally when I saw that there was a disparity in the amount of capital that goes to all the categories I just listed, and straight white men. And I just didn't think it was fair or made much business sense. And so I set out to figure out a way, and now we just have an amazing team that has taken us from 1 to 200.
It's amazing. Thank you. I also want to point out that over the last couple of years, I believe that our industry has grown up in positive ways of opening the doors more in the last 24 months than in the previous 24 years. And there have been a lot of new funds which have popped up and a lot of groups which are doing amazing things, and it's great to work with them. But Arlen was one of the first. And the work that you have done has opened so many doors for the amazing work that everyone is starting to do now.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So now Densil.
Well, hey!
So I fanned out a little bit. I mean, this is like coming home to Mecca, right? Like when you think about someone who has set the stage for other people to follow, someone always has to be first, and I appreciate you for being so first, like out loud first, like just
Thank you.
so first. So it's I was sweating earlier, nervous.
Oh, we're good.
I'm
We're
settled.
BFF now.
I'm settling.
Talk about yourself.
So yeah, what's the question? Is there a question?
So I mostly wanted to give you your moment to, fan out about it. Yeah.
It's a fan out.
But tell us about the Pride Fund.
Well, I think many of you have heard about the Pride Fund already because we've had some wonderful representatives already on stage talking about it. And we owe so much credit to Wolf and Naveen for being able to inspire us to be able to make the space for us to do this work. So the Pride Fund was really a thought of Wolf over here, who may sometimes be modest. Actually, before I even get into what the Pride Fund is, I need to give props to Wolf because he made the Midwest House even bigger, right? This used to be the Michigan House. I got to acknowledge it. And you, Wolf, you've inspired people to bring together community, as you so often do, to create connection in wonderful spaces. So I'm so thankful for you for making this happen. So just giving you props.
Thank you. And on that note, we're at the Midwest House. So many years ago, I think it was 4, but it was COVID time, we were putting together an idea for the Columbus House. We came to South by the year before. We had 2 big revelations. The first one was we should create one of these houses for our city. And the second was we should create a fund to support the LGBTQ plus community. And so it was from that we put that together, and we were building up the Columbus House. And we met our friend Ted, who's around here somewhere. He's always around here somewhere doing 1,000 different amazing things. And he really mentored us and said, okay, we've been doing this Michigan House for years. Here are the things you want to do. Here are the things you absolutely don't want to do. And we just built this friendship. And from that, it grew into a conversation about why aren't we being more collaborative? Why aren't we partnering? Why would we have 2 houses when we could make it all one? And I'm really, really proud of the team that Ted has assembled to put events like this together. And quite frankly, they get all the credit for including us as their neighbors and allowing us into their space. They're truly amazing. And it reminds me of the way that our funds are starting to work together, are having to collaborate. When we first got the idea back at South by Southwest of putting together a fund, we originally weren't going to. We were going to find a fund and find a way to support them, but we couldn't. There were a lot of amazing funds, specifically Backstage Capital, that were definitely supporting underrepresented founders from all across the board, but we couldn't find one that was just Pride focused. And so we had a lot of conversations, a lot of partnerships. Lorenzo from Gangels is right over there.
Hey.
They're one of the groups. When we started talking to them, they had something like 10 million assets under management. Let's just say that they have a few more zeros in that category now. And we talked with them, we talked with Start Out, we talked with the NGLCC about how we could all collaborate and work together. And that's really where the nature of this comes. Arlen, one quick question for you is when you're working with other VCs, how has it changed from when you first started to the conversations that you're seeing happen today?
Well, the only credit I'll take is that I've now started investing in other funds, and I've invested in about 25, and 24 of them, even with our mandate or some form of it, didn't exist when Backstage started. So just the fact that there are more funds of our size or a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller to play with. I mean, we were sort of sitting around and watching the big, billion-dollar funds play in the playground together. And we were on the sidelines with a few select funds. And now it's just like, now we can be friendly competitors because that's what we're doing, right? We're making business decisions. We can collaborate with each other. We can share deals. We can, there's that competitive landscape that's mixed with, there's more dignity to it now. And I think very different than even 4 or 5 years ago. So it's exciting. I want to know more about the Pride Fund, in fact, And I think the reason I invest in funds now is because there's so much impact there is. So if there's anybody who's thinking about becoming an investor who's accredited, I would say invest in a fund or two because I love that I can put in almost the same amount as a direct investment, and I'm impacting 20, 30 portfolio companies. And I think that's really the way that we catalyze and we go forward with it.
What kinds of funds are you investing into?
So it's kind of the same mandate as the Backstage Capital. So these are women-led funds, black and brown-led funds, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't have to have the same mandate that we have, but I like funds because I believe so much in what I'm doing at Backstage and what we're doing at Backstage. I know that people who are looking, where other people are not looking, are going to win. I'll do another kind of braggy moment, but it helps with this story. Is Mark Cuban invested $6 million into Backstage a couple of years ago, right? And I interviewed him on my podcast, and I said, "Why did you invest?" Because he doesn't like to invest in funds; he likes to invest directly in companies. Yep. And he said, without skipping a beat, "You're in rooms I'll never be in." Right? So there's that understanding, and he's very savvy, he's very wealthy. He didn't get there by accident, and it's that sort of savvy understanding that he's not going to be everywhere. How powerful is that for us? Yeah. Right? For us, not the fact that he's given us money, but for us to know, we are an asset to other people. We are valuable, and we shouldn't let anybody gaslight us to think otherwise.
So Densil, when I showed up at your house a couple years ago and said, I'm really appreciative that you are a venture partner and you were already helping us raise and fighting some great companies and whatnot. But I said, Naveen and I really want to talk to you about leading this fund. How did you make the decision that this was something you wanted to get involved with?
Well, I was nervous, number one. And when Wolf tells you to do something, you actually just do it. I think that's one of the first things. You will learn that quickly when you work with Wolf. I think for me, the reality was we had done so much intentional work in the year before the conversation happened about who would lead the organization. And I think in that year, we explored collaboration and connection. And central to me was the competitive nature, but positive competition within this space. You don't normally see that within VCs. I think VCs are out to get each other, right? And I think for me, it was, I'm sitting here and I'm, again, in awe of Arlen and what they were doing, but when stepping into that space, I didn't want to compete, right? I wanted to be able to uplift the same companies or more and go deeper than who they were already seeing. And I think that opportunity that you and Naveen brought to me was, this is a chance to tell a story that has not been told so intentionally, so thoughtfully, so deeply in one particular community. LGBTQ identities are everywhere. We literally exist everywhere, right? So for an opportunity for us to once and finally uplift our identities in such public ways was inspiring for me. This work is not about me in no way, shape, or form. It is about everyone else, right? It's about making space for those who have vision, who have passion, who have excitement, who have energy, who are dedicated to whatever it is that they are dedicated to. And so I think when you all came to me and said, hey, would you like to lead that organization and help us? That was an easy yes. To continue to make space for people who have not had space so publicly before was essential. To continually think about non-binary identities who don't get to exist in the public, to think about gay, queer, black people who don't exist in public. Thank you, again, for living in that truth. I think that is something that you can't ever sort of take for granted, right? So even if I'm not out there, talking about who I am, every day when we step into these spaces, someone is inspired to say, yes, I can too, right? I'm a queer black man helping lead a VC organization. That is not a thing that you see. I'm a non-binary individual who is stepping up and presenting as they want to be. That is not something that you typically see. So when you have an opportunity to step in those spaces of leadership, of vulnerability, then you must. And that is why I said yes.
So why did you say yes, Arlen?
Did I say yes to being the CEO of the Pride Fund?
No.
Arlen said, I woke up with this idea. This was my idea.
Why did you say yes to taking this gigantic leap at the time that you did?
And starting Backstage.
Exactly.
Oh, I say this, and I don't really. It doesn't matter to me if people think it's corny, but I try not to be corny with it. But for so much of my life, I felt like I was, sort of chasing something, and I think that's really great, and it gives us ambition. But it was the first time that I felt it was like drawing me in. It was sort of like undeniable signaling and a feeling about it was like, it just didn't sit right with me that there were so many amazing people who were being discounted. And the whole point of it wasn't just to invest in as many people as we could, it was to prove the fact that they were there and to spotlight them so that they would, our portfolio would be like a case study or a blueprint, because so many people were saying to our faces that that there were companies being led by underrepresented founders that were not viable, like that or that they didn't even exist to begin with. Where do I find them? And so the idea that I was just like surrounded by people. I wasn't surrounded by investors. I was surrounded by people who were making things and building things, and that can be anything from Main Street to putting satellites into space. They were making things, and until you make something and build something from the ground up, you should not be the person saying it cannot be done, right? So there was just no way I could see it and then unsee it, and then leave it there. There was something I had to see happen.
Who are some of the new members of the community that are stepping up and taking that responsibility now? I see Mac, I see Overlooked, I see a lot of them. Who are some of your favorites?
So cool. So yeah, Mac at Rare Breed, just like an amazing guy. Lolita is like really community driven. Love what she does. Overlooked, like you said. There's a Hustle Fund has been doing their thing. I just think that to me is exciting. I don't go to a website of like a $500 million, $1 billion fund and their stodgy website and go, oh my God, that's so exciting. Oh my God. And they have so much money. I'm like, they have a compliance section and there's like a little login for their LPs. Like that's not exciting. I get excited when I see someone say, I just raised $4.5 million so that I can invest in 90 companies, 50,000 each, or 20 companies, and I did it brick by brick, and I have a point of view, and I'm going to take the meeting. Like you mentioned, Mac, what I know about him, and I'm an investor in his fund as well, what I know about him is that he'll take the meeting. And when I started out, I was trying to do Tuesdays with Maury, like every Tuesday, I would do open office hours. And so people were saying, like, how did you find your founders and how did you even find them? Because I made myself available for people to talk to me from day one. And that's what I think is setting apart this new group. Like, I'm so happy and proud. And it also, just side note, it lets me know that I can take a break because it's in such great hands between Backstage and the rest of the ecosystem that's coming up.
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed by the way that you have grown the fund, been the almost solopreneur at first.
At first, yeah, definitely not now.
Oh, no, you can't. Yeah. And now you have another project rolling out. Yes. I love this. Do you want to tell the audience what your side hustle is?
Yes, well, it's not the side hustle. It's a full-time, along with Backstage, but it's called Runner. It's at It's at hirerunner.co. If Runner people in the house, raise your hand, please, if you're at Runner. Wow, all that noise was from two?
I thought.
That's what's up. Yeah, so Runner is matching fractional operations talent with inclusive startups of any size. So the majority of our customers have 1 to 10 employees, including the founder. And so it's that two-sided marketplace of people who need extra help to get their companies started or to maintain their companies, gives you extra time, puts more time back on your plate so you can do things like strategize, rest, watch General Hospital, whatever you need to do. And on the other side of it, you have people who from all walks of life, if they're interested in operations work, executive assistant, COO, head of people, that sort of thing, then they can curate their careers, they can curate their hours, be matched with someone who is not only going to do the work and work with you, but is going to care about your company. So you have this two-sided marketplace that they're both getting something out of it, and all of our runners, what we call our talent, are W-2. So they have protections, they have certain things that they can get as a group, and it's just, we're six and a half months old or something like that, and very, very excited, and our app comes out next month. You can go to the wait list right now, hirerunner.co, see what it's all about. And, you know, a lot of us are walking around South by, and I encourage you to have a conversation about it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for building that along with an amazing team.
Yeah, because it's these two lanes of getting resources. It's all about this main theme of catalyzing. It's like getting resources into the hands of founders and getting resources into the hands of builders and operators. And, you know, our goal is at Runner is to have 1,000 W-2 runners by the end of the year. Let's see if we get there, right?
Yeah.
But that's our goal. And that would mean 1,000 people being able to pay rent if they want to use Runner for that way. And to me, as someone who was, who, you know, had a lot of housing insecurity for most of my life, if Runner had existed 7 years ago, then I wouldn't have been homeless, I believe, because I would have used my ingenuity, my talent to work with another company and work with them through the Runner app. And so to me, it's just like it's just so aligned with what Backstage does that it's easy to do.
Absolutely. Let's hear it for Runner.
Let's hear it for Runner. Yeah.
So Densil, you wear a couple of hats as well.
I do.
Probably fabulously.
In addition to being the CEO of the Pride Fund, you're also the executive director of Stonewall of Columbus. I would love for you to share a little bit about what Stonewall does, but I also want you to talk about how the two roles intersect and how you're able to have them complement each other towards your personal mission.
Thank you. You know, so when I stepped into the CEO role with Pride Fund, I was like, I'm a professional gay now. Like, I get paid to be gay, like 100%. Like, and it's amazing. I mean, when I think about, and I know that I look like I'm 16, but when I think about 20 years ago, there was no damn way that I could have been paid to be gay. Like, no way, right? And be public about it. And so I think, you know, my life has always been on a path. Well, I'll tell you a little bit. I'm a first-generation American, so I came from the Caribbean. My mother did not graduate from high school. A single-parent home. I am the youngest of 3 older sisters. I am the first in my family to graduate from college. I'm also the queerest in my family. It wasn't until I came out that my sister came out, and then my trans cousin came out. And so, you know, it's sort of setting trends and making space for other people to feel comfortable. And when I was able to start being a professional gay, you know, for me, it was like, you have to live into it. And so to accept the opportunity to lead Stonewall Columbus, which is an LGBTQ nonprofit in Central Ohio, we put on the second largest pride in the Midwest behind Chicago, but we also are creating access and space to services and needs that our community don't traditionally have. And I think it's exactly what we're doing with the Pride Fund, right? We're creating space for identities that aren't always often seen. And when we think about it in the nonprofit space, it's fundraising. In the VC space, it's fundraising. The great thing is that when we get our funds, we get to invest it back into the community. And I think that's exciting for me, right? So as I sit as a nonprofit executive at an LGBTQ community center, business ventures are something that we see all of our community wanting to be a part of, wanting to start. Backstage Capital, the statistics that we often talk about is less than 1% of those dollars are coming to the queer community. So if we can't inspire people through the social service space to then take those business ideas into the entrepreneurial space to really lift themselves up, then we're not doing ourselves a service. Everything is actually quite intersectional and interconnected if we think about it. So every day when I go to Stonewall and I am, you know, ensuring that our young folks, our youth, our adults are feeling like they can live and be genuinely who they are, then they will take that into the business space. They will then say, I feel like I can, right? I feel like I can walk into pitch competition and talk about the fact that I am a queer identity. Oftentimes when you are pitching in a lot of these spaces, that queer identity doesn't come into the conversation. It should come into the conversation, right? We've already heard from Reverie, Damien, who let us know that when you're looking at return on impact from investment, queer identities, minority founders, we are working that much harder. I'm sorry, it's a truth, right? Because we have to prove ourselves, right? Every day I go to work and I have to work 3 times harder than any counterpart who has been in this position before me, right? Because when you see a black queer person leading an organization, you sit and you wait. Why? I don't know. You shouldn't sit and wait. You should lean in. You should invest. You should help us be successful. But when we think about our counterparts who came before us, they had privilege. They had access. They walked into these spaces. Arlen already said she didn't come to this with connection to spaces. She didn't come to this with connection to people, right? Mark said, you're going to sit in rooms that I can't sit in, right? We need to realize that that's a commonality between a lot of queer identities. I don't know how many queer people are in this room, but, right, when...
I think I do.
But ultimately that's what it is, right? So when I have the opportunity from a for-profit side and a nonprofit side to have those things intersect, we have to do that work. We have to make space for people to step into, to feel comfortable, to be their full selves, to live their true identities. When we think about it, a lot of founders, right, they are inspired by their experiences. And if you are a queer founder, whatever you're finding or founding has been inspired by your experience. And sometimes it's important to tell that part of the story when you're pitching. And sometimes, often, you just don't feel comfortable because you're presenting to a bunch of cis white dudes and you're thinking they're not gonna wanna give me this money, right? Because they don't understand my queer story, they don't understand my queer journey. I met these lovely film directors today. I don't even know if they're still in here, right? But I said when they're directors, they're coming to that with a queer gaze, right? If you are a queer person, everything comes with a queer gaze. Whether you want to think about it or not, it's automatic. And so the ability to be able to tell your story openly and honestly with a queer gaze is amazing. And I think ultimately that's what we're doing in the nonprofit space, right? We're making space for those social services for people to feel whole enough so that they can go to the for-profit space and say, this is who I am. I am queer, I am non-binary. Even the language that we use has evolved, right? Like I can remember 20 years ago, it was just LGBT. Right? And as we look about it, right, as we have stepped into spaces, as more people have been able to be open about who they are, we add letters to that moniker.
It's like an eye chart.
And it is.
or alphabet soup.
Or eye chart, alphabet soup, right? But we are being seen, right? And that's where the intersection is. You can't just do this work in one space. You can't just do this work in the for-profit space. You have to do it in both spaces to ensure that we're being seen everywhere.
So one question which I have for both of you, as an ally myself, is what do we need to be doing better, specifically within the venture industry, to help support this change, which I believe most of us agree needs to happen, but how do we make the greatest impact?
When you say we, describe that for anybody who doesn't know what you mean.
Absolutely. So as a straight white dude who every day becomes an older, straighter, well.
You don't get straighter. You do not get straighter. Don't let him fool you. You get queerer. It's okay. Actually,
it's
you
okay.
are.
I learn a lot from Densil. But we can agree I'm getting older. What can I do, and what can I encourage every room that I'm in that might not be as diverse as it should be, where I'm looking at other people who are not like me, but look like me and have done things in their circles that have not been as open? What is the opportunity for us to support in the smartest ways?
I'll start. So good. Two things come to mind. One is the more education you can do, and this is not just a pointing outward, it's kind of pointing inward in different spaces too. The more education we can do and you can do to understand that it is an opportunity not only to support, but it's a mutually beneficial thing, and it's not so much someone needs my help, It's more like, what am I missing? Like, if you're having the conversation at all, thank you. And it usually really is sincere, but a lot of times there's this twinge to it that it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to protect your feelings now because you are uncomfortable and raging inside with all kinds of emotion and trauma on a daily basis. I mean, how many of us at South by, as lovely as it is, have been slighted in some way? Someone thought you worked there, someone thought you this and that. It's every day of our existence, we're being treated a certain way, and you can be uncomfortable for this 5-minute conversation. I promise you'll get through it, right? I think that's the way to do it, and then it's more of a we thing rather than a, like, you're observing us at the zoo sort of thing.
So that's what we will all do together.
Yes.
I was wondering. So let's lean into this space of uncomfortableness, right? Earlier today, I was talking, and my daughter. I love my daughter. She's 5. She just turned 5, February 21st. And I was earlier speaking with someone about, being parents and sometimes stepping into spaces where other people are uncomfortable because you have a child there. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You were once a kid, so get over it, right? Like your parents experienced this because you were once a child. So you need to learn how to move through that, right? Like, you need to accept it. And I think when we think about it, stepping into these spaces of uncomfortableness for other people, that's your own expectation and your own issue. I don't have to deal with it, right? When I present myself fully as I am and you don't accept it, that's your problem. Lean into it. Understand why you're uncomfortable. Ask yourself, why am I uncomfortable? Ask yourself, literally, for all the things, and then probably you're like, oh shit, it's my problem, not yours, right? And so I lean into that very much. I think the thing that I speak a lot about is moving from sort of this notion of, I'm here to be an ally to being an accomplice, right? Like, step into my shoes for just a minute. Think about what it means to experience the world.
My fabulous shoes for just a minute.
I would have buffed them today, but whatever. But literally step into these shoes for just a minute and think about what it might mean to be a black queer person, an international black queer person trying to exist in America, right? There are intersections there, right? Like, not every black person comes from the same experience. Our diaspora is exactly that, a diaspora. Right? Not every queer person has the same exact experience. So you need to step into our shoes, be uncomfortable for just a moment with whatever privilege that you have, right?
That we all have. We have some all
privilege,
of us have it.
Right? But step into it and say, okay, wow, I understand now, right? I literally understand. So move from ally to accomplice, because then you'll be like Wolf over here, right? Who's getting a little more queer every day, right? And you will understand, right? You'll move from this notion of sympathy to empathy, right? You'll have a deeper understanding of what it is and what we're going through. And then, right, it'll be easier for you to tell your friend, this is why you should invest. This is why you should uplift. This is why you should be telling this story, right? It's not going to be a far off connection. It's going to be a real understanding, a deep emotional connection to what someone else is experiencing, right? So step into our shoes. Ally to accomplice is the biggest thing that I think is important.
Thank you. So one comfortable. One
Get
conversation. I'm getting good at getting uncomfortable. One conversation which we had a couple months back was that if you ever have a question, feel free to phone a friend, and know that it's okay to talk to someone if you're not sure, and create those relationships, and don't become a burden on someone to make that happen. But in a professional setting, how do you handle when people are uncomfortable and it becomes a stop in what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, I'm not exactly sure of a situation that's happened like that, but I can say, like, May of 2020, my phone blew up. How many people's phones blew up with colleagues, or mostly not direct colleagues, but people in the ecosystem, asking how they're supposed to do something or say something. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is I think there's just this idea of, like, I do want you to ask because that means that you care and you're wanting to get better. But first, ask if it's okay to approach you with it.
Right. Find your friend that you can call.
But ask
have
them.
someone. Yeah.
Even if you assume that they are, ask first, because you don't. You know, they say like check on your strong friends. You don't know necessarily that they are ready to take that, but they might be the one, right? So you can ask them. You know, most people want to be friendly and helpful, and I have to believe that in this world to exist in it, right? To survive in it. But I do have an optimistic view of people, but I do, you know, it doesn't have to be this constant asking of, you know, can I step here, can I walk here, can I say this? But it's this idea of not assuming that we all have a degree in psychology and anthropology and sociology and
right.
everything that it's assumed, because again, people will gravitate to their friendliest black friend.
Yes.
And say, I'm going to just put all of this on that person. And then in turn, I have seen my peoples get real fast, real upset real fast. How dare you not know not to call me this? And how dare you not know that singer from the 70s who did this R&B song? People have different lived experiences. It's not everybody should know all, you know, necessarily knows all of they didn't get the full memo. So a little bit of grace in both directions or in all directions, I think will go a very long way and has gone a very long way in a professional setting.
Thank you. When you're looking at portfolio companies, when you're bringing groups in and they have an opportunity to improve, how much does Backstage talk to them about that, or is the expectation that they are going to be prepared and ready when they come in?
I'm not prepared and ready, so I don't expect anybody to be prepared and ready. That's the whole point. I mean, we were just with several of our the founders of our portfolio companies, and some of them we saw yesterday, some of them we haven't seen in 4 years, and we're still approached about tactical maneuvers, and about strategy, and about very specific things and very broad things. And it's because we enjoy it. We could talk about it all day if my voice would stay, which is not, but we could talk about it all day and think about it all day. And it's because it's real. Started runner, like entrepreneur, 6 months in, there's a lot of things that go on, right, that are tough that you have to figure out. That's what startup world is. So if you tell me as a portfolio company that you've got it all figured out, you're either lying to me or you're lying to yourself. Yes, or both, right? So it's part of that. Now, it doesn't mean that every single investor has to be hands-on or have that view that that's their strategy, but most investors, angels, VC, et cetera, they have a thesis and they have a way that they want to work with founders. And ours at Backstage is we want to be that call as if we were on your board, even if we're not. We want to be that call that we get a lot of calls from people who they have a board we're not on. They call us first. They say, we could never tell our board this. Yep. Because they feel like we'll understand. And then we help guide them to a point. You can tell your board, like, you know, it's okay. We've all been there, et cetera. So I ask people what is not going right before I ask them, you know, give me all the great stuff that you're telling the world. I want to know what's not going right, because that'll help you sleep better at night, I hope, right?
Absolutely. So Densil, when you're looking at companies which are sent over from our good friends at Angels or our friends at Start Out or our friends at Backstage, what would be the first question that you would ask them?
So before I answer that question, I want to go back to something. So Wolf actually is a really great person at phoning a friend, and he does ask if it's okay. So I appreciate that every time you do step into that space of uncomfort, you usually will say, is this okay? Are you okay with it?
And he didn't correct me. Learn from that. Learn from that.
So I mean, you know, you do the right thing. So I thank you for that. You know, I'm so thankful to be able to say that, you know, at Pride Fund we have a wonderful network of support. Wolf being a part of that support. Chase is out here somewhere. I think you met the redhead guy down at the front by the bar, giving out tickets. Michael is a part of that. You met Michael earlier, and I think by the time that those items come to me, we have all taken a peek at it, right? And so we all have an understanding of this is going to work, this is not going to work. I can't do this on my own. Because I probably would say yes to everybody, right? Because I don't want to let anybody down. I was having a conversation about this with someone else the other night. I was like, I don't want to say no to anyone, right? Because ultimately, what you believe in is something that's great and wonderful, but I have to say no to some people. We have to say no to some people. And so there's never that sort of that first question, right? The first question is not, it's different for each company that comes across. We're not sort of a monolithic copycat like entity. We know that. All four of us ask different questions every time something comes forward. So I think there's no, single question. I think when we are sitting down together, we are all asking whatever we feel may be not present in the presentation, not present in the communication. We're always wondering what's missing, right? Like, is there something that is missing from that entity that we can lean into to help uplift? We talk a lot about uplift. I think Naveen said it earlier. That's central to our mission. So maybe if we're thinking about the questions that we may all ask independently, is what's missing from this organization, this institution, this investment, that we can step into that space to help them and uplift that story. If that's a question, maybe that's a question, but I think it's a query internally. So then the questions that we lead with are tied to that.
What are you most excited about with our industry moving forward? Now that we've made some changes, we've improved some. We've got a long way to go. But what are you excited to see as sort of the next step?
For me, I'm excited about the crowd. And I mean, more and more people understanding that they can be angel investors. They can invest with their time, with their energy, with their retweets. You know, it's no longer, at least from where I'm seeing, and I hope it gets even more, prolific here. It's no longer these 12 venture funds, and if I don't get these 12 venture funds to hear me, then it's hard for me to start a company. It is so many of our funds that are popping up that are really run by amazing people. And on top of that, there's crowdfunding, and there are people individually who think, well, my $500 doesn't mean much, or my $100 or my $5,000 doesn't mean much. It can mean everything for a company.
Yeah.
There's a woman named Susan Kimberlin who invested $25,000 into Backstage Capital as my first investor. I have raised tens of millions of dollars since then and generated millions in revenue since then. I talk about her almost every week of my life because she was the first yes. And you can be someone's first yes with, what you have today. So that to me is exciting, and I think 2, 3, 5 years from now, you're going to see all kinds of angel groups. You're going to see all kinds of people catalyzing others and being part of this ecosystem. And it's even 3, 4 years ago wouldn't have looked like this room at South by. So we're already making such great lead, making in.
Yeah.
I've lost words. It's happened. I told my team I'm about 14% to the point where I'm going to lose all words. Here we are.
You're sounding incredible.
You were here to see it. Thank you. It's a good thing we're filming this.
Hello, world. So to build on that, you recently did a crowdfund campaign of your own.
Yes, we did. I love our crowdfund.
How did that work?
So we at Backstage in March of 2021, we did a couple things. We became the first of a couple things. So you can now raise in regulation crowdfunding up to $5 million in the U.S. as a company. It was harder to do that as a fund, but we found our way to get operating capital, and that's a whole story of how we built that kind of process from the ground up. So we became the first fund to do so for operating capital in the country to raise $5 million. We did it in 8 days. We also became the first company led by a Black person to raise the $5 million threshold of Reg CF in the country. Quickly followed by one of our portfolio companies coming in, Curl Mix coming in right after that, and close to that. Wow. And so that's why I'm so excited about it, because anywhere I go in the country, and I don't know if this room is the room, but did anybody invest in our Reg CF in this room? Yes. So anywhere I go in the country so far, since that raise, I meet an investor of ours.
Yeah.
How cool is that, right? Do we know each other? No. So you're my investor, and now I'll get to know her, right? And that's amazing to me. And I don't know how much she invested. She could have invested 100 or 100,000. I don't know. But she now has ownership in our upside, which to me makes it, as tired as I am, it makes me wide awake every morning, every day to do it over and over again, because so many thousands of us will win together.
It's amazing. And that is that accessibility that you were speaking of.
That's it, yeah. Like, I don't know any other way to do it. I don't have any joy doing this without it being like, rolling deep.
Absolutely. So by a quick show of hands, how many of you are a startup founder or part of a startup network?
Hey, everybody.
Love it.
I want to take a moment to thank all of you for working so hard so that we can do what we do. So give yourselves a round of applause, because I was talking to one of our portfolio companies, College Cash, earlier, and
Yeah.
I very quickly came to the realization that you have two jobs, and you always have two jobs. You have the job which is running your company, building it, working your asses off in order to make yours and your team's dreams come true. But then simultaneously, you also have a full-time job, which is working with us.
We could be a pill.
Yeah, we're sorry. We keep trying. We're getting better. But I'm curious, Densil, when we're looking at a conversation with a founder, and we know how they're doing and what they're doing and how it's going, but they have a big change, what is the best way for them to communicate to us and say, hey, we're pivoting? Because we all know that there are pivots, and there are good pivots and there are bad pivots, but would you like them to be direct, or would you like to find out about it last minute? What's your
Last
ideal
minute,
way?
right? Last minute.
Direct. I mean, but I think this goes back to sort of the conversation we've already had. I think the relationship that we develop with our founders is such that they feel comfortable telling us, I'm pivoting, right? They're not concerned, they're not worried, they're not afraid that we're gonna have some sort of negative response. I think they've seen how we've leaned into them from the beginning to say, you're figuring it out, we're figuring it out, we're figuring it out together, right? So when they say, hey, there's a change happening, we often say how can we help? Right, like how can we be a part of that process? Is there something that we can answer for you? Do you need connection to a new partner? Is there someone that we can again connect you with, uplift, whatever that may be? But being direct is something that I think, and as I look back here at some of those folks in the background, they're very direct about it. They let us know, and I think again it's about that relationship that we've established from the very beginning. We are friends. We cry together. We celebrate joys and successes together. And so when you have that comfort in someone that is an investor partner, you're willing to be that much more vulnerable. Vulnerability is something that we, again, don't see a lot of in the VC space, and I think that's something that we are nurturing as much as we possibly can. We need you to be vulnerable. If we don't know what's going on with you, how can we help? How can we be a part of the process? How can we invest our energy? It's the same thing as I said earlier, stepping into someone else's shoes. We have to fully step into your shoes, right? We have to so much step into your shoes that we need to be able to live, breathe, and think just like you are thinking about the work that you're doing. Right, so when Reverie tells us the story about how that was, what they did in India, I get emotional. I think about the fact that that's what we're helping create. That's what we're helping inspire other people to do. So I think that the direct way is the best way, at least for us. Now, you may not feel that comfortable to do that with some of your other investor partners. I'm sorry. Maybe have conversations with them to bring them along into this particular space and say, look what other people are doing. Look how we have relationships with these other investors. But I think that's the most important thing, is as direct as you possibly can be.
And how many of you out here are investors? VC, angel, across the board?
Founders should be going like this.
Be bold about that head turn, y'all.
Yeah,
be bold about the head turn.
You know who you're going to be looking for in 5 minutes. I I'm curious from the other side of it, with the investors that we work with, how would you describe the relationship, Arlen, of being a VC raising money versus being a fundraising money? What's similar and what's really different?
A company versus VC? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun because I am fundraising all the time for Backstage because we have open funds, and I've just raised $2 million for Runner, and raising again with Angels was part of that as well. Backstage was a major part of that as well. It is similar in a lot of ways, and now I have a lot of experience with it. But the thing is, like, because of the way I built Backstage at the beginning, this is what I would have been doing, you know. And I'm glad that I get to practice what I preach. And what I've always told people is to be transparent, to go in authentically, and not, I call it being hungry, not thirsty. Like, don't go in there trying to get the check, and then you have to spend the next 7 years of your life pretending to be the person you were in that room, or you give away this sort of desperate feeling. You ultimately have that power, you know. And then, and talking about, like, people coming in to pivot, I think rich people are really cheap, you know, and that's not a bad thing, because that's how they maintain their money. Like, I'm not saying it as a bad thing, but they are frugal, and there's a very little risk tolerance for most rich people. And so when you have people who are starting funds from a different lens, and their risk tolerance is different, then you're talking, as we were talking about, you're talking to your peer, and you're talking to someone who's been in those shoes, and it's just a really great perspective. So when people come to us, and founders come to us and say we're not only pivoting, sometimes, you know, people say that they're shutting down. I want to give a shout out to Zero Grocery, run by a trans founder. They just announced that they're shutting down, and they gave it a really good try. We were with them for most of that. That to me is like, what's self-awareness? You know, like, you didn't, like, it's the toughest thing in the world, but you said, I'm not going to take on more investing capital. I'm not going to do that because I see that there's an end of the road here, and we tried our best against all odds. And to me, like, that sort of transparency, I want to hear it as early as I can, but also, you know, I have time to adapt to it, but also welcome it, and that people don't have to be scared.
Thank you. Okay, so as we wrap up, I want to point out that we have some copies of It's About Damn Time here available.
Free!
Full free, thank you for coming, kind of thing.
You got a card.
I just realized on my pants, I have, you know, that little sticker that comes on your pants
Welcome to South
with
by.
the XL.
I was like, she got some new pants on. I
Some
noticed this.
sticker, yes. Somebody now, team, we have
You
a large
failed.
team here.
Oh,
Large team here. Heads up next time, right? Bright lights, you hear? Being filmed from that angle, right?
So,
they can take it out in post.
before we wrap, and I would love some parting thoughts from our amazing panel. Let's hear it for Arlen and Densil. As parting thoughts, I would like each of you to make an ask of what everybody here could be able to do to help each other and have as much mutual success as possible, or an offer which they can make. But I have one ask, which is our dear friend Kelly Jones from 86 Capital, amazing. Please give her a follow. She is awesome. She would be with us right now, but South by happened, and just the work that they do. And I'm sorry, 68 Capital. It's really, really amazing. So definitely check them out. Give them a follow, please. Densil, what do you think, or what's your parting thought?
Tell someone else's story, right? Like, again, going in someone else's shoes, learn something so deeply about another community, another person, another company, maybe even in the same space, and tell someone else's story, right? Because that's going to help, again, get our stories out. We can only tell so many stories of the people that we connect with and work with, but I think you all have an opportunity to do the same thing for someone else. So today, hopefully, maybe you'll meet someone new, and you learn about them, and then tell their story to someone else. And I think that's going to be probably the most impactful and thoughtful thing that you can do for someone.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for listening to us and for supporting. I do want to make an offer, and it's truly an offer. It's a lot of entrepreneurs will want to ask, like, what do I do next? How do I get in touch with you? The best way I know how is to go to arlensacademy.com, and there is about $4,000 worth of free curriculum there by about 20 different experts on your entrepreneurial journey, and it is available free because Runner is making it so. So please go there while it's free. It wasn't free before for a year and a half, and now it is. Arlen's Academy. On top of that, we do monthly free office hours, so we can connect and do things there, and we can at Backstage and at Arlen's Academy we do that. So please go to backstagecapital.com, go to hirerunner.co, all three, and then I'll leave you with what has been emblazoned on a t-shirt now. Hopefully I'll sit on a billboard one day, which is, be yourself so that the people looking for you can find you. Be yourself so that the people looking for you can find you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much to all of our sponsors, all of our partners, the Midwest House, Ted, Jamie, the entire crew, our sound team.
Lane Bryant.
Official sticker sponsor of
wait.
Arlen's Pants.
So wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I gotta do one little plug, y'all. So my fabulous tunic is from Ollie Awake, and it's a non-gender clothing line based out of Columbus. So if you are looking for something fabulous like this, Ollie Awake. It's got pockets for people who like pockets.
Love it.
I normally will not have a it's a beautiful look. If it wasn't this damn cold, there would be no shirt, and you would see my fabulous back. Just saying.
Any last plugs that you need to make today?
I think we're done, and I'm very, very happy. And ask this person about the Amsterdam tech scene. Ask her about the Amsterdam tech scene.
Your shirt.
Well, I would like to close this out by saying that this has been amazing. It's been incredible to meet all of you. Thank you for being here and giving us your time today. A highlight of my entire year was getting to meet Arlen and Arlen's mother.
Hey, Mrs. Sims. She turned 73 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
As you read through this book, which some of y'all are getting for free, you'll learn about the journey. And if you're looking for some amazing inspiration, it's a quick read and it's great right here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy South by.